Ladies and gentlemen, when Mr. Grevin gave his opening statement to you, he told you several things. First of all, he said this was a tragedy. It is. It's a tragedy for the Winebrenner family. It's also a tragedy for the Ivery family. Mr. Grevin also told you that Mr. Ivery was guilty of certain guns charges. You have 3 gun charges in your verdict forms, 12, 13, and 14. One involves CCW, carrying a weapon. The other is weapon under disability, which means basically if you have a prior felony conviction, you can't have a gun. The third, which I believe is count 14 now, is you can't carry a gun into a liquor establishment. Mr. Ivery is guilty of those charges. We haven't ducked or dodged that at all. Mr. Grevin also told you in an opening statement that this is a case of self-defense. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to work you through chronologically the steps, the timelines, to prove to you, to show you that A, this is a case of self-defense, and secondly, the state of Ohio has failed to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, some of the most important elements of this case, particularly the aggravated murder charge. Okay? Now, your first count is aggravated murder. Okay? Aggravated murder says that no person shall purposely, with prior calculation and design, cause the death of Justin Winebrenner. That's it in a nutshell. You will have in your little folders there the jury instructions. So if I misspeak, hold that against me, not against Kenan Ivery. But you'll have those jury instructions to refer to. Now, these purposely means that a person has intent. In other words, does the state have enough evidence to convince you that Kenan Ivery walked into that bar with the intent to kill Justin Winebrenner? Probably the best piece of evidence for both sides is the video. The video is the silent witness here. You have in your jury room that big TV screen that they put in last Friday. You're going to have a little computer there, and you'll be able to put these discs in there, and just like Mr. Baumel did, you can play as much of those discs as you want. Should be 3 discs. Camera 3, which is the view straight down over the cash register, straight out the front door. Camera 4 is the view from the patio door looking down toward the kitchen end of the bar. Camera 13 is the outside video. And we're going to talk about each one of these. As the judge told you, the state starts off closing argument, and then the defense has its chance. The state, because it has the burden of proof, they get to go last. It's called a rebuttal. Now, I want you to understand that just because I don't stand up after Mr. Baumel gives his rebuttal, it's not because I quit or have nothing else to say. The rules in this state say the state starts, I'm in the middle, they finish. That's it. Now, we've got, chronologically speaking, it's a Saturday night. It's in Ellet, city of Akron, county of Summit, state of Ohio. And there is a fundraiser. And the fundraiser is for a youth, what I call Pee-wee football team out in Ellet, which has done well. You've heard they've gone from worst to first, and there'll be $20,000 raised so they can send this team on invitation down to Florida to play the tournament. That's a great honor. That's a big deal. Imagine you're 11 or 12 years old, and someone says, hey, you want to go to Florida to play football in a tournament? That's pretty heady stuff. So Mr. Ivery, whose son plays on that team, goes to the fundraiser. Mr. Winebrenner and Miss Miller also attend. Mr. Ivery tells you he catches Miss Miller, sees her there, sees her with another person, who is Justin Winebrenner. There's no problem there, no confrontation. They don't even speak. Then this fundraiser's over. Mr. Winebrenner and Miss Miller go their way. Mr. Ivery goes his way. At about 12:30 or so, Mr. Ivery gets to Papa Don's. He's been there before, likes the food, likes the chicken wings. Arizona Ranch and honey mustard. He goes in. What's the first thing he does when he goes in the door? He doesn't tell you that he walks through the door, causing trouble, yelling, screaming, throwing things around, flashing a gun, threatening anybody. He walks to the bar, orders his wings. He comes back a little bit later, he wants his wings to cool off, comes back in, starts buying or attempting to buy drinks. Person with, he's not particularly successful, but watch him. I mean, you folks aren't confined to just the time of, say, from 1:30 to 1:53. You folks can go back to 12:30 and come all the way forward. You can run those discs back and forth, a slide at a time. That's your option. That's why that TV screen is going to be back in your jury room. So Mr. Ivery, not causing any problems, is in the bar for basically almost an hour. He's talking to some girls, trying to buy them drinks. They turn him down. And then supposedly, we have Rosemary. And remember what Tiffany Miller said. She sometimes gets a little dramatic. We asked, and she actually told one of the police officers that she was a drama queen. And Tiffany says, well, I don't remember that, but she does get a little dramatic. Remember Anne Marie is a former employee, and now she's a customer. Which brings up another good point. How many friends do you think Kenan Ivery had in that bar that night? You're going to hear all kinds of, what, I'm going to slap that bitch, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. How many of those people were friends of or even knew Kenan Ivery, yet how many knew the boss, Tiffany Miller, and how many knew Tiffany's fiancé, Justin Winebrenner? That goes to whether you can believe what Jeff Bates says or anybody else says. Remember, Judge McCarty told you, you can believe all of what somebody says, part of what they say, or none of what they say. That's your option. Mr. Ivery then does something. He checks on why Rosemary runs down the bar. He goes down to see Tiffany and Rosemary, and what does he do? He says he backs up. We've heard that this is referred to as a patented move. I don't think it's a patented move. I think it's a move of non-aggression. I don't want any trouble. If you're going to have trouble, if you're looking for trouble, make sure you get it in somebody's face. What he does is he steps back, he steps around, puts his hands up. And what does Tiffany do? She talks to him and says, go down to the kitchen end of the bar. I want to talk to you. And what does Kenan do? Okay. He walks down the bar. He doesn't put up a fight, doesn't scream or yell. He walks down the bar. And he talks to Tiffany Miller. He recognizes her, maybe not as the bar manager, but certainly one of the staff, somebody in authority. So what's he do? He listens to what he's told to do. Goes out the bar. They talk for about 8 minutes. And you heard Kenan say, hey, listen, we talked a little bit. We saw each other at the fundraiser. He's not looking for trouble. But she says to him, you gotta leave. All right, what does Kenan do? Does he push Tiffany? Does he fight with her? He turns around, walks over to the bar, says, what about my wings? He's so concerned about his wings that
Tiffany tells Jeff Bates, go get the styrofoam box. The styrofoam box is brought over and put on the bar. That's important down the road, folks. When you watch this video, keep an eye on where the box is. Sit on the bar. As he pays his bill, you hear Jeff Bates say some things about he's mad or stuff like this. The video, once again, is the silent witness. You can hear people who later on, within an hour or two, give statements to the police. Sadly, a good person, Justin Winebrenner, has been shot, and they now realize they've been told that he's dead. Imagine their bias. Here's the only black guy except for Mr. Wilson in the bar, and he shot and killed this police officer. Imagine their memories or their ability to maybe exaggerate what they heard. And you can hear, when you play this thing, the music, that's a din in there. You can hear loud voices. And remember the time that this is going on. This is going on between basically 1:30 and 10 minutes to 2 on, now it's Sunday morning actually. And people have been drinking in that bar. It's loud, there's 20 to 25 people in that bar. And the music is just out of sight. You can't hear yourself thinking there. And now you're being asked to listen to hear what these people are saying. Kenan Ivery pays his bill, turns and walks away. I think it's Miss Jewett that says, Courtney Jewett, I think we asked her on cross-examination, when Kenan Ivery left the bar itself, did he have every reason to believe that his wings would still be there if he came back? She said, absolutely. Watch the video. Kenan Ivery turns and walks away, and on his way, he stops and talks to Justin Winebrenner. This is the very first time he's had any contact with Mr. Winebrenner. And Kenan Ivery's testimony was, he said something to the effect of, did you hear me call anybody a bitch? Mr. Winebrenner takes a sip off his beer, basically doesn't answer. But maybe even just as important is, you heard Mr. Ivery tell you that the guy sitting to the left of Mr. Winebrenner was a guy named Ed Akron. We didn't hear from Ed Akron. Don't you think that if Ed Bachtel heard, I'm going to slap that bitch, or I don't want this, I don't want that, don't you think we would have heard from Ed Bachtel? What does Mr. Ivery do then? He talks to Mr. Winebrenner for him. I think the timing is roughly 20 to 25 seconds. You're going to have the little time prints on the bottom, the dates. You folks write this down. He walks out the door. Does he run out the door? Does he storm out the door? Does he say anything to anybody like, I'm going to be back? He does tell somebody, Anne-Marie, and I think it's Natalie Lynn or Jody Sugg, that I got a 40. Or a 40 caliber. And he told you that when he left the fundraiser, that he didn't have a gun because he's there with his girlfriend. They drive separately. Then he gets the gun out of the trunk of the car. Why? I heard him say that he's got a mother, works with the Board of Education. His father is a retired firefighter. He had two brothers. his sister. 2011, his one brother was shot and killed. They haven't found the offender yet. He's been robbed a couple times, so he keeps a gun for self-protection. He goes into the bar, he has a gun. He's wrong, he's guilty. Right there. You've got 3 guilty verdicts right there. CCW, weapon on disability, having a gun in a liquor establishment. He walks out the door, not screaming, not yelling. Door isn't kicked open. Door's not damaged. Gets in his car. You've got camera 13 that shows the car drive out. The car drives out. You don't hear any tires squealing. You don't see the car going sideways. You don't see smoke coming through the tires. He goes out, makes a left turn, goes up East Market Street. He gets down to the lights. Forgets it. I forgot my wings. You've heard how much he likes the wings. He likes the food there. Turns around and comes back. Now, camera 13 again. He pulls into the parking lot. Doesn't come in sideways. Doesn't come in squealing tires. When he comes in, he drives his car nose in up against the building. He gets out of the car, turns the key off. Now you heard Detective Sergeant Lickey say, I saw him reach across the front seat of the car. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Defense Exhibit B is a photo of the front. You're going to take this back in the jury room. All that stuff behind the witness stand that goes into with you, including this. It is a photo taken by, actually it's taken by, I think it's Detective Morrison, or one of the crime scene people, that shows the inside of the front seat of Kenan Ivery's car. And what's there, right on the passenger side? A cell phone being charged. Oh, okay, O'Brien, what's the big deal there? Okay? What is found in Kenan Ivery's right front pocket when the police apprehend him up by the off-ramp? A cell phone. That's Officer Derek Jackson. What is found underneath Kenan Ivery by another officer? A cell phone. You heard Mr. Baumel talk about Kenan Ivery getting out of the car and putting something that looks like a gun, has the color of a gun, the size of a gun, from Detective Sergeant Lickey. Well, first of all, there are only 4 experts in this trial. Dr. Dean, the medical examiner, she talks about the cause of death. 2 gunshot wounds. You have Ms. Farinacci from BCI, Bureau of Criminal Identification. That's a brand new building out in Richfield. It sits up across from the old trucking terminals. And her job was to take swabs of as much physical evidence as she could and then give it to Stacy Violi, who's the next expert. Stacy does DNA. And then the 4th witness, the 4th expert would be Mr. Gardner, who does ballistics. He tells you about the gun that Mr. Ivery had. We're not telling you that Mr. Ivery wasn't there. We're not saying he didn't have a gun. We're going to talk about elements in a little while. But those are the only 4 experts. Detective Sergeant Lickey did a nice report. But he's not an expert. That's why that photo is important. Kenan Ivery is reaching over, getting 2 cell phones. That's what he puts in his right pocket. Look at the video. That's camera 13. You folks decide. There's a car. He gets out of the car door is still open. How can anybody tell what's going on? It's dark. It's 1:45 in the morning. The light is faint at best. All right, that's at 1:52 and 20 seconds when that car pulls in the parking lot. Do you think, ladies and gentlemen, that a person who is planning to kill somebody is going to park their car right up against the building? Do you think there's a purpose that's been shown at this point for a killing, an aggravated murder? Ask yourselves that. There's basically 3 tests here. And these tests are, has purpose been shown? Has prior calculation been shown? Is it self-defense? Those are the 3 tests. Those are the 3 big ones. I'm going to digress for a second and talk a little bit about the other charges. Counts 1 through 11 pertain or have the possibility of self-defense as a defense. Because those are the 11 counts that deal with crimes of violence, that deal with ag murder, felonious assault. 12 through 13 and 14 are the gun charges. 15 is tampering of evidence. Tampering of evidence means that allegedly Kenan Ivery had the presence of mind, his gun was one way, and he had the presence of mind of somehow picking up the magazine and running off with it. You decide if there's enough evidence that sustains that count. Now, it's 1:52 and 20 seconds. It's Sunday morning, November 16, 2014. Kenan Ivery gets out of the car, walks behind the car, camera 13, doesn't run. He gets to the front door at exactly 1:53:00. You can see him come in on camera 4. You can really see him come in on camera 3, because that's dead on with the front door. He walks through the door. 12 seconds in, at 1:53:12, what happens? What does the video show? Mr. Lacady, David Lacady, Big Dave, over 300 pounds, blocks his path. This is important. I want you to be very careful about how Mr. Ivery walks in the bar. He doesn't walk straight in the bar, and if he did, he'd go right to the cash register. No, he walks in at a diagonal off to his left. Why? What was off to the left on the bar when he left? That like styrofoam box of chicken wings. But he doesn't get there. Why? Big Dave stands in his way and says to him, if you touch or say anything to Miss Cuzio, I'll kick your black ass. Now, how do we know that was said? You can't hear that over the music or the talk. What does Tiffany do? Tiffany's basically standing between them. She doesn't turn to Mr. Ivery. She turns to Big Dave. She almost puts her right hand on his left arm. She looks up at him to cool him off. This person, big guy, he's not a bouncer. He's not security. He's simply a patron. A patron that had been in 4 prior bars and bowling alleys before he got there. And then he gets to Papa Don's. That's stop number 5. He said, well, I only had 3 beers and all that time. Well, you can believe part of what someone says, all of what they say, or none of what they say. Why is that kind of unbelievable? The girlfriend, Miss Inhofe. She talks about the same 5 places. She can't even remember how many drinks they had. And she has a .32 in her blood alcohol when she gets to the hospital. .32, ladies and gentlemen, is close to alcohol poisoning. So who is causing or starting anything? Mr. Ivery does. He sees Dave Katie, what's he do? He stands back and he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa! He's got his hands up. He's calling Mr. Wakiti bro as his brother. It's street language. He doesn't want any trouble. He just wants his wings. You then see Mr. Ivery lift up his coat to show that he has a weapon. But here's what's important. If he's looking for revenge, or if he's really looking for trouble, why doesn't he pull his weapon then? Why doesn't he do it then? He's really looking for trouble. So, once again, Mr. Wakiti doesn't move. He lifts his coat again as if to say, listen, I don't want any trouble. I got a gun, leave me alone. Mr. Wakiti doesn't do anything, stays there. You heard Mr. Wakiti say, my memory's not too good about that night. I was pretty intoxicated. Well, you have that silent witness in the video. At around 1:53 and 45 seconds, Mr. Winebrenner approaches Mr. Ivery. So at this point in time, Mr. Ivery is facing a big guy, Mr. Wakiti, and all of a sudden coming up on his left. And he's trying to get over, to get away from Mr. Wakiti. He's trying to get at those wings. But Mr. Winebrenner now comes up and blocks that path. About 1:53 and 45 seconds. Then, what you see is, you see Mr. Winebrenner reach for Mr. Ivery. David Eisel. David Eisel has been standing rather, at the bar. In the videos, it looks like he's got an burnt orange, faded orange jacket on. It's really, the way the videos are, they come across with a green tint, so that comes across as that Ohio State jacket comes across as orange. He walks from the bar and walks over to Mr. Ivery's right. At this point in time, Mr. Ivery is now surrounded by Mr. Winebrenner at 235, Mr. Wakiti over 300, and Mr. Eisel. You know, we made a point asking Mr. Eisel, how big are you? I'm 6'2", 215. So, at this point in time, there's somewhere between 750 and 800 pounds surrounding on 3 sides Mr. Ivery. Well, what about the 4th side, O'Brien? Look at the video. What's behind Mr. Ivery? A wall and a table. At exactly 1:53 and 50 seconds, Mr. Eisel comes over. The group is now complete. At about 1:52, in so many seconds, you have Mr. Winebrenner reaching in, and then you have Mr. Isel. Mr. Isel is a patron. He's not an employee there. But you can see very clearly Mr. Isel reaching out and grabbing Mr. Ivery. Have any shots been fired? No. They grab him, and you hear a "Gah!" as he's being thrown back over a table and dragged to the front door. Then you hear the first shot. So, is that self-defense? There's three elements to that. It's in your book. You folks decide that. But let's go back to the purposely and the prior calculation elements, particularly of aggravated murder. Did you see anywhere in there that Kenan Ivery said to anybody, I'm coming back, I'm going to get even, I'm going to get revenge? No, he walks out. It's pretty quiet. Let's go over that definition of purposely. Purposely is an essential element of the offense of aggravated murder. A person acts purposely when it is his specific intention to cause a certain result. It must be established in this case that at the time in question there was present in the mind of the defendant a specific intention to cause the death of Justin Winebrenner. Each time he shows his weapon to Dave Wakady, it's to get Dave Wakady out of the way so he gets his wings. You never hear anybody testify, I'm here to gun down Justin Winebrenner. Well, Justin Winebrenner never even said anything to him, and he has a short conversation with him. The other element is prior calculation design. Prior calculation design means that the purpose to cause the death of another was reached by a definite process of reasoning in advance of the homicide, which process of reasoning must have included a mental plan involved studied consideration of the method and the means with which to cause death. And it probably, as important as the first couple lines are, let's go to the very last sentence. But acting on the spur of the moment or after momentary consideration of the purpose to cause the death is not sufficient. We talked a little bit about elements. Purposely and prior calculation design are elements. And when you picked your jury, we asked some of you folks if the state of Ohio, through their burden of proof, only proves 3 out of 4 elements, is that good enough? And one of your groups says, no. You have to have beyond a reasonable doubt each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Did the state of Ohio prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Kenan Ivery purposely had this intent and a plan, prior calculation design, to kill Justin Winebrenner? That's what you have to ask yourself. If you didn't, then you go down to murder. Decide if there was a purposeful plan. No calculation, prior calculation design in murder. Mr. Ivery wears glasses. When he walks in the bar each time, he's wearing glasses. Yet, they find the glasses out in the parking lot someplace. Mr. Ivery has 3 guys rushing him, pushing him backwards. His glasses fall off. He can't see. He doesn't know what's going on. But you heard him say, "I was afraid." Well, you folks, each one of you, has the opportunity, and actually the duty, to put yourselves in Kenan Ivery's spot. What would you do in that spot? Time here is extremely important. When you watch this video, everything happens basically within a few seconds. Watch the video, count the time at the bottom. Does Kenan Ivery have enough time to form some intent to kill Mr. Winebrenner or shoot up the place? Does he have the time to form a plan, private elevation design, to kill Mr. Winebrenner? That's what you have to ask yourselves. That's the test. Mr. Ivery is outside. He gets up. Camera 13 shows you him running at a diagonal across the parking lot and across East Market, then you lose him. Well, ladies and gentlemen, why didn't he stay there? Why didn't he call 911? Think about it. You just shot somebody, and actually it turns out more than one person. There's only one other black person in this entire bar. Are you going to stand there on your cell phone and say, "Hey, I'd like to get the cops here"? We hear then that he goes up the off-ramp, he's in his field. He's laying down. He's not still running. He's not running anymore. Mr. Baumel would say he's hiding. No? Maybe he is. He's not running anymore. He's laying face down. Mr. Ivery tells you he had his hands out. Officer Edsel, the canine officer, says, "We yelled at him to show his hands, but he didn't. So I let the dog loose." The dog gets him by the right leg. You saw the wounds on the right leg. But then you hear from Officer Tinsley, I'm sorry. And he says, "I came up and kicked him in the head." Wearing like a typical police officer might wear a patrol combat boot. Yeah, something like that. Kicked him in the head, jumped on him and started pounding on him, saying, "You killed a cop. No, you shot him." At that point in time, I don't think, unfortunately, Mr. Winebrenner was pronounced dead at about 2:27. This is about 2:10, 2:15. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Grimm and I feel for the Winebrenner family. We do. Without police officers, we have anarchy. We have to have it. And they do a nice job. They find, Officer Jackson finds this one cell phone in the right front pocket, the other cell phone is found underneath, where Mr. Ivery's laying face down. So, the test here, once again, does the state of Ohio prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Kenan Ivery acted purposely with prior calculation and design? You heard a couple of women talk about the word bitch or turning him down for buying drinks and that sort of thing. That doesn't really affect Kenan Ivery's ego. He's so offended that what's he do? He goes down and starts playing the jukebox. He's playing the jukebox at 1:20 in the morning. It's right at 1:20 that Mr. Winebrenner and Miss Miller walk in. He's got his back to him. They don't know each other really. There is certain discussions between Miss Miller and Mr. Ivery. You look at the videos to discuss it. If this is such a confrontation, why does Miss Miller, when she tells Mr. Ivery to leave the bar, she turns around and walks to the other bar? She's not that concerned. It wasn't that big a deal. As a matter of fact, she tells Mr. Winebrenner, don't worry, I got the situation in hand. She says the same thing to Jeff Bates. At that point in time, there's no threat from Mr. Ivery. He's not happy about being told to leave the bar. He's been in there before, never been kicked out of that bar. Never been a problem before. But this night, everything spins horribly out of control. And Mr. Ivery, think about it, it's not until two other people put their hands and grab him that the trouble really gets out of control. Mr. Ivery's backed up once or twice, got his hands up there, he shows his gun, doesn't pull his gun up. It's only until two other people put their hands on him. You'll have the video to decide for yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very difficult case for the state and obviously for Mr. Ivery. Mr. Grevin and I appreciate your attention. And it's our fervent hope that you will listen to what Mr. Baumel has to say and what we call rebuttal. He's going to take some issue with what I've said in my characterizations and my viewpoints. That's his right. He's permitted to do that. I would ask you to listen to him as much as you listen to me. But I believe that the state of Ohio has failed to prove all the necessary elements of aggravated murder and the other attendant violent charges from 1 to 11. I will tell you right now, 12 through 14 he's guilty of. You also have the test of self-defense. Look at the elements of self-defense. The test for self-defense is a little bit different than for counts 1 through 11. 1 through 11, the state has to prove this evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, what's that? That's kind of a amorphous, loosely defined example. I would suggest to you that if something is like you're 50-50 convinced of something, you're convinced of 50%, but 50% you're what? Undecided. Not proven. Self-defense, that is what they call an affirmative defense. That's on Mr. Grevin and myself. And we have to show you folks by a preponderance of the evidence. That's not as high or as strict a test. Keep that in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Please give everything your utmost attention. You have no minimum amount of time in a jury room. You have no maximum amount of time in a jury room. You can take as much time as you want. You can work as late as you want, or as long as you want. That's up to you folks. There's no rush here. You have 15 counts to think about it. But Kenan Ivery had no plan. He had no intention when he walked into that bar to kill Justin Winebrenner or wound anybody else.